Hello, hello. It is Erica with Redheaded Princess Designs and Holy Mastic. And today we are going to paint up one of our new kits. It is a cute little Valentine's Day house shelf sitter. So let me pull some of these pieces off of here and we will get painting. So we're going to start with this middle house. And we're going to do this in a nice teal color. So I've already poured out my paint. So I'm just going to grab some teal. I'm going to grab a little bit of white as well, just so I have some better coverage. And I'm going to come in and just paint this house piece here. Remember, you just want a nice thin coat of paint. It's better to do a couple of thin coats than to try to put all the paint on there at once. And I do not paint the edges of my pieces. They have a nice wood burned edge. And so I like that look. And so I leave that plain as much as possible. Try not to get too much paint there. All right, so that is that. We will let that dry. While that's drying, we're going to go ahead and do the pieces that need to be black, which is going to be our base. So this kit comes with 3 pieces for the base. You have a solid piece, and then you have 2 pieces that have the slots cut in them. These are going to stack up together like a sandwich. So we only need to paint one of those. So we're going to paint this one here black. Black paint's going to cover really well, so it's not going to need a second coat. All right. And then I can just set that to the side because those other 2 pieces do not have to be painted. While we have the black, let's go ahead and do the roof lines and the little chimney piece here as well. So 3 houses and 3 roof lines here. If you are brand new to painting with us, a way that you can tell which side is the front and which side is the back. The front side's generally going to look cleaner. The back side's going to have a little bit of char on there, some burnt marks from the laser. So you always want to paint the front of your pieces. You can paint the back on something like this. It's not going to matter, but some of the pieces, it will change how they sit in there. So you just want to kind of pay attention to that as you're going along. All right, let's see. Anything else we need to paint black while we've got the black on our brush? I don't think so. So we're going to rinse that out really well. Let's go ahead and put a second coat or a first coat on our other houses as well. So we have this house that says Kisses and has the little XO. I'm going to do this one in pink. So we'll just grab a little bit of our pink and put that on there. I am not worried about the paint going into those score lines where it shows me where the words and stuff go because those pieces are all 3D. So not worried about that. And then this house we're going to make red. It's the one that says February 14th. I'll give that a nice coat of red. Well, you'll notice I didn't rinse out my brush in between. That's because I just had the pink on there, so I wasn't terribly worried about what that was going to look like. Let's do another coat of pink. This paint dries pretty quickly on the wood, so you should be able to very quickly go in with a second coat. You'll notice I'm using the same brush. I have not switched out my brush. I've cleaned it a couple times, but other than that, I'm just using this one paintbrush. So you can do these kits with very little extra supplies. And that's what we like about that. All right, so that's probably going to need a second coat on the pink. And then our teal definitely needs another coat. So we'll go ahead and rinse that brush really well. Wipe it off on our towel. We're going to take and do a second coat on our teal. See how much nicer that second coat covers. I'm not worried about the roof lines because that 3D piece is going to cover. So I'm just getting close to where I know that those are going to be covered. And then this piece here is the base, and the other two houses are 3D. So that's why I'm not worried about that edge either. 3D pieces make it so nice. You don't have to be so particular with your brush. You can just come in and paint. All right, so there's our second coat on the teal. That looks beautiful. Let's do another coat of red and a coat of pink. All right, so one more coat of red. I just want to make that red pop just a little more. Perfect. All right, that's nice and bright. And then we're going to do one more coat of pink here. I have a lot of red on my brush, more than I thought I did. Let's grab some more pink. There we go. So if you like those burned edges and you find yourself getting a little messy with the brush, you can always take a baby wipe or even just your finger and run it along that edge while the paint's wet, and it'll clean it right up for you. All right, there's our pink. Now we've got some little pieces to paint. This one's going to be fairly easy to put together here. So we're going to take a piece of painter's tape, and I'm just going to fold the ends under and set that onto my table. So I've got it sticky side up. Let's grab some of our pieces. So we're going to do the February, so FEB, and the 1 and the 4. Whoops. In white, and then I'm going to do my X's in white as well, and we're going to do this little scallopy piece. I may not need to put that on there, and let's do this Be Mine. And we're going to use a makeup sponge, maybe, to paint this. So all I'm doing is clipping the end of the sponge because this is one that I had already used. Your kit's going to come with a clean, brand new sponge, and you can use it for as much as you want. Anytime you dip into the sponge, we're using the rectangle end of the sponge, so opposite of how you would use it if you were using it for its intended purpose. And then each time you're just going to offload. So you're going to tap onto your plate or another surface, your palette, wherever, just to get some of that excess paint off. That just keeps you from pushing too much paint down over the edge of your pieces. Remember, we're going for thin coats of paint. We don't have to put all the paint on there at one time. A couple of quick thin coats is better than trying to smush all the paint on there at one time. Each time I come back into my big pile of paint, I'm just offloading over here on this side so that I don't have a ton of paint on my sponge before I come over to my pieces. I like using this sponge to paint pieces because it keeps the paint from getting down into the little grooves. It keeps it just be a little bit cleaner, a little less messy than if we were trying to do all of this with a paintbrush. And we're just tapping straight up and down with that sponge. Paint dries pretty quickly, so as you can see, once I get done with everything, I'm pretty much able to come right back across all my pieces and give them all a second coat. That tape just kind of helps hold everything down where it needs to be, so I don't have to worry as much about getting paint all over my fingers. All right, so those are all of our white pieces. We're going to set those over to the side. We're going to grab another piece of tape, and we're going to do up some of our red pieces. So we've got some tiny little hearts and some lips. 1, 2, 3, 4 hearts and 2 lips, and then our O's, our little heart that says be mine, and then we're going to do this one called love as well. Notice how I have this little piece here that did not get popped out all the way when this got pulled off the laser. All you have to do is you can take like the back of your paintbrush and just kind of push on that, and it should come right out for you. Okay. All right, we're going to do all of these in red. I'm just going to dab my sponge straight into the red, offload a little bit over there on my plate, and come in and give these a quick coat of red. If I was switching to a different color that I was worried about, you know, if I was going from red to green, I would clip the sponge. Just take the scissors just like I did at the start and just clip the end of that sponge off, and that way you can just keep on using it over and over again, because you'll see the only part that's getting paint on it is that very front end of the sponge. When you get our kit, you're going to get your paint into tiny little paint pots, and so you can take a brush and kind of scoop that paint out onto a plate, or you can take the brush and kind of brush it onto your sponge so that you can get that, because the sponge won't fit down into those little pots. But the sponge works really well for painting up our pieces. Oh, I have a cat who came to help. Hello, Miss Kelly. All right, so we're just giving all of these a quick second coat, and look at that. That is all the pieces we have to paint here. So let's remove the cat. Excuse me, ma'am. What we can do now is do a little pizzazz here. So I'm going to put a little bit of a red on the sides of this pink house. So I've got my sponge. I'm going to take the side of the sponge and just barely tap around the bottom of my house. Just barely coming over that edge, very light pressure. I don't have a ton of paint on there, and I'm just barely tapping just to give us a nice little shadow all the way around. We can do with the red, let's take a tiny bit of black and just kind of let it mix with whatever red is on our sponge, and that'll give us a nice shadow for this red house. We'll just come around. We're just barely tapping. I've barely got the side of that sponge coming over the side of my piece. Nice little shadow there. We'll do a little shadow around this heart. And we're just barely tapping with that sponge. This is just that little extra stuff that you can do or not do. It's not going to make or break anything if you don't do it, but it's just kind of a nice, fun little extra. Let's go around this word love. You have to be cautious when you do this to make sure you're not coming too much over the front of your piece, or you'll get more of a rectangle mark from the sponge. So we're just barely tapping that sponge around the edges. We just get a nice little shadow there. I think that's probably about all I want to do to those. I do think I will do a little splatter to this red house. Maybe I want to do, let's see if I can find. I like to do splatter with my fan brush. Let me grab one. That's just what I prefer. There's lots of different ways to do splatter when you're doing paint splatter, but I like the fan brush. And all I'm doing is I got a little bit of water on here and I'm bringing it over to my white paint and getting that white paint nice and fluid. And then I'm just going to come in and just do a little tap with that. That's a lot of splatter. That's okay. Let's do it to the pink house as well. The trick here is to remember you want to move anything that you don't want splattered because it's going to go everywhere. Okay. All right. I just went ahead and did all of the houses with some splatter. And we're going to glue everything down. So inside your kit, you're going to get a bottle of glue. It's going to look like this. It's going to be E6000 or P7000, something like that. You're going to use that to glue all your pieces down. Just remember, it's not a quick dry glue. It does take some time for that glue to set. So you want to let everything lay flat for a good 24 hours before you assemble or before you stand everything up. I am using a bigger bottle of glue because that's what I keep here in my craft room. But it's the same general concept. And all we're doing is setting these on here and lining them up on the edges, making sure everything's nice and straight. And then we have beautiful score lines that are going to tell us where to put everything. Anytime you're using your glue, you just want to remember you need just a dot, not a lot. Little goes a long ways. I always say you want to put it on the pieces like you're putting on lipstick. We don't want big gobs of glue. So I'm running that tip of that glue right up along the back side of my pieces. And that keeps it from getting too messy. If you still struggle with it, you can always use a Q-tip or a toothpick to apply the glue. I find that's just an unnecessary step for me, but you can do that if you prefer. All of these glues are going to dry clear. So even if you do get just a little bit around the edge, it's going to be okie dokie. All right. We've got our roof line on each one of these houses. I just love this. I think it's so cute. And it goes so well with this month's Wagon Club box. So it's going to look really cute sitting next to that. All right, here's this. Remember, we're just checking as we go along. The nice thing about those glues that we give you is you do have a little bit of time where you can kind of wiggle things around and get them in just the right spot. We're just all the etched lines are here that tell us exactly where to put all of our pieces. So we're just lining all those up with the etched lines. You could really do a lot of extra with this set. You could put polka dots on your houses. You could stencil some little hearts on here if you wanted. This is really a nice kit because you could do a lot with it, or you can leave it more plain and just do the simple colors. Totally up to you. Now you'll notice sometimes I'm putting the glue directly on where I'm going to put my pieces, and sometimes I'm putting it on the pieces. It's totally up to you how you do that. There is no right or wrong way to put those down. When it's the thinner pieces, I like to kind of put the glue on the actual piece rather than putting it down here. Just gives me a little more control. But it's up to you. All right. And we've got our kisses. Yep. And then we've got some little hearts and some little lips. And these are pretty tiny, so I'm just going to do a little dot of blue in each one of those spaces. And then I can come in and just set these down where they go. And then you can save this painter's tape and reuse it if you want. Sometimes I will stick it to the side of my desk here, and then that way next time I need it, I can just pull this off. Sometimes it's so painted that it's not salvageable. So it's totally up to you what you want to do there. All right, there are our cute little houses, and we need to glue this base together. So remember, I told you we're just going to make a sandwich. So you just want to line up the slots here so that they are lined up together. We're going to put some glue on the flat piece. We're going to glue the unpainted one down, and then we're going to put more glue, and we're going to put the painted one on the top. So it's just like a sandwich out of all of these little pieces. Just make sure you line all your slots up. If you want to glue this into here, you can do that. Remember, you're going to let this dry before you do so. But you can run some glue right inside of there, and then this would be permanently attached. Sometimes I like to not have it be permanently attached. That way I can take it out when I'm setting it up, and it makes it a little bit easier to store. That was not glued all the way down. Okay, why are you not? All right. And that's why we want to let everything lay flat before we move it. Because it is not. That's what happens. All your pieces start to slide. Back up there. He might need a little more glue. All right, so there is our cute little Valentine's Day house shelf sitter. Adorable. It's gonna look super cute displayed for Valentine's Day. And once that's dry, I should be able to get that down in there just a little further. There we go. It's a tight fit. So those bases, they should be a pretty tight fit. And sometimes it's better to wait. Don't do what I'm doing. Wait until you're just constantly moving your pieces around. Okay, there she is. Look how cute. So super cute little display for Valentine's Day. Check it out on our website, and then check out all the rest of our fun projects as well. I hope to see a picture of your project real soon. Have a great day, guys. Bye.